Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Coder. We are going to continue this week from where we left off last week, which last week, as you know, we did the clues for Minesweeper. But before we get started on Minesweeper, I want to share with you a project that I've been working on side, and that is, I've been, since the last episode that we did, basically checking all the directionals, kind of got me thinking about Conway's Game of Life, which is something that I thought about many, many years ago, but never ever did anything with. And I thought that maybe it would be fun to kind of sort of see if I can make that work in Unity. So I did. I kind of messed around with it. And then that turned into a whole, like, a new thing. It evolved into this whole, like, editor where you can, like, create your own patterns and save and load using serialization and deserialization and, the saving of data, retrieving of data. All that stuff is going on in that part of it. So I was thinking about, if you guys are interested, turning that into a tutorial. But before we do, I'm going to show you basically, usually what I don't do is I usually don't show you the end product before we get into the tutorial. We kind of achieve the end product together. This time I've already kind of finished it, so I'm going to show you what we're going to be working toward. So maybe, I don't know, maybe that'll get some of you excited, maybe not. We'll see. Alright, so anyways, I'm going to click on a play button here. And the first thing you see is this grid. And basically, this grid is a class all on its own, and we're going to go over how to create that. That's going to be like a whole episode just by itself. But what I did is I used the touch inputs that Unity offers you, and I created this kind of editor where you can go in and kind of just, start filling in squares. So I don't know how much you guys know or don't know about the Game of Life, but basically the way it works is you have your starting pattern, and from there, the computer kind of iterates over all of the squares in the grid and says, hey, how many neighbors do you have? And if there are a specific number of neighbors, then the cell either gets to live or die, or if it's not alive yet, it gets to come alive depending on the number of neighbors it has. I'm not going to go over the rules right now. It's a little too in-depth for this little preview. But just for proof of concept here, all right, I've drawn this shape, which is a pentamino, actually. If you guys know Tetris, Tetris uses tetraminos. And those are all made of 4 squares. Okay, each shape is made of 4 squares. So pentaminos are made of 5 squares. And if you guys are not aware of that, I actually have a game that is currently out on the Apple TV called Minos. And that actually uses pentaminos. It's a Tetris-style game that you play with pentaminos instead of tetraminos. So if you want to check that out, that's on the Apple TV. I haven't released it on any of the other devices yet, but it is on the Apple TV if you have that. So search for Minos. So if we press B, it'll begin the simulation. And you'll see that this pentamino actually starts a pretty radical simulation of gliders and all kinds of other stuff. I don't know how much you know about the Game of Life or the terminology around it. Either way, this is that. So we can pause the simulation at any point by pressing P. We can also load another simulation, such as the Gosper glider gun, which is something that I've already saved. We can press S to save this simulation where we're at currently. But let's go ahead and load. Let's load the Gosper glider gun, which is kind of cool. This is a starting pattern for that. And basically what that does is it simulates a shooting off of gliders to the right bottom corner, basically forever and ever. So if we begin the simulation, you'll see what I'm talking about there. So these two things, they go away, they collide, and they continuously shoot up gliders. So, I just think it's kind of fascinating because the amount of thought that would go into creating something like this, or an algorithm that would create just this specific simulation, is just, it's so kind of crazy to think about how you would make your computer do something like this in a controlled fashion. This is uncontrolled. This is like, this is just happening, right? Because based on a simple set of rules. So, anyways, that's what I created, sort of that whole thing. And we're going to go over all of that. Alright, so here we are with our Minesweeper tutorial. And part 4 is I'm not even sure what part 4 is going to be just yet. I know that we created the mines, we're randomly generating them, and we're also creating clues around the mines to tell us how many mines are around each cell. So if the tile that we're placing is not a clue, and it's not a mine, so the next thing I guess we need to do is we need to actually create a tile script and then assign that some properties so that we can say whether or not the tile is a clue or a mine or a blank. Whether or not it's been uncovered, well, actually we won't get into that just yet. Right now, let's just create this new script. Let's do that. C# script, and we'll call it tile to just be simple. All right, so here we are with tile. We don't need start, we don't need update. What we do need are properties, and the one property we need is probably an enumeration. So we're gonna go with a, we're gonna make it public, and enumeration, and we're gonna call it, let's call it tile kind. And the kind of tiles we're going to have are going to be blank, mine, or clue. Okay. And then we're going to create an actual property for that enumeration. And it's going to be called, also going to be public, and it's going to be called tile kind, and we're going to call it just tile kind. We're going to set that equal to tile kind dot blank. That'll be the default. All right, so now that we've got that, let's go back to Unity and stop this for a second. We're going to go back to our prefabs, and we need to create another prefab. So we're going to create this blank. We're going to just drag that into the hierarchy. And then we're going to go to the prefabs folder, drag the blank into the prefabs. All right, now we got a blank tile. And we'll delete this from the scene. And now that we've got it deleted from the scene, and it's in our prefabs folder, it's obviously a prefab, which it was before we removed it from the scene, so that doesn't even matter. So we've got our blank, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we also have mine. So what we need to do is we need to just select all of these, and we need to add component, and we need to add tile. Tile. Oops, that's a C#. Actually, let's just type tile. There. All right, and the default is blank, which we set. So we don't need to worry about the blank tile. So what we do need to do is we need to change the actual type of the tile kind that these are, right? 1 through 8. Those are actually clues. And then this mine obviously is a mine tile. So why are we doing this? Well, for one, because right now, the way that things are happening in the game script, we are placing mines, and what we're doing is if grid xy doesn't equals null, if grid xy equals null, nothing is here, so it can't be a mine. And right, we're just basically saying that, hey, if whatever is a grid xy, if it's null, then it's not a mine. Now, that's true because when we place the mine, right, we're setting that location in the grid array equal to that game object. So we know for a fact that when we place the clues, because we've already placed the mines, that if there is nothing at our current grid location, then that's not a mine. We know that for a fact. But we also need to, at some point, be able to tell if something is a clue or a mine, because when we click on a specific tile, we're going to need to be able to check and say, hey, is this a mine or is it a clue? Or is it a blank? Because right now, all we know is that we're storing something in the grid array at the XY location, and it's a game object. We haven't tagged it, right? We haven't really named it. The name gets generated based on the prefab name, and it just adds like a underscore 0, 1, 2, all, it just keeps incrementing so that we don't end up with duplicates. But other than that, we don't know. We just don't know. So we want to be able to check what it is. So the first thing we have to do is we have to get rid of all this game object stuff, right? So first of all, this grid is not going to store type game objects anymore. It's going to store type tile, because that is what we're going to work with. So tile, which is the class that we created just now, right? So we're going to store tile. It's going to be our grid. So you're going to see a whole bunch of errors pop up. One, we're storing MineTile in grid XY, which we can't do because MineTile is a game object. So all we really need to do is we need to just say, hey, tile is what we're doing here, right? And we can't say type of game object because it's going to be type of tile instead. And we are not going to basically instantiate that as a game object, but we're going to instantiate it as a tile. Whoops, not tile T. So now this is happy. Okay, that's one thing. And place clues, game object, clue tile. So we're going to say not game object, but tile. Oops. Clue tile. Type of wow, this is tile. Oh my god. Tile. If I can spell. Or actually spell I can. Typing is something that I seem to be having issues with at the moment. So we've got tile. Clue tile. Alright. So if the number of mines is greater than 0, alright, that's what we're doing right now. If number of mines is greater than 0, and just so that you guys know where we're at, we're in the place clues method, and what that method does is it places all the clue tiles if grid XY equals null. And since we actually know what type of tile we have at grid XY, we also want to make sure, actually no, we're placing clues, and that doesn't matter at this point, so don't even worry about it. Just forget what I said. So right now we're setting these clue tiles, right? We're creating them, and we also should be adding them to the grid array, okay, as good practice, because we're going to need to check these later. So we're going to say grid XY equals clue tile. So we're starting to fill up our grid, right? We've got our mines in our grid. We've got our clues in our grid. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to actually place our blanks. Right? So let's go ahead and create a method for that, and we're going to place it right after this place clues method. Place blanks. And that is going to be void. Okay. So here we're going to say for int y equals 0, y is less than width. What do we make that? I haven't. We didn't specify an actual variable name for that. I thought for sure we did. So then we increment y, and then we say for int x equals, whoops, wow, int x equals 0, x is less than 9, and x plus plus. All right, so we increment x. What am I doing? All right. So if grid xy equals null, right? There's nothing at the grid. Then we'll want to place a blank. So the way we do that is we create a new tile. We'll call it blank tile. Instantiate resources dot load prefabs plus nope, we just need to, I don't know what I was thinking. We're just, because it's called blank and it's going to be type of tile, and we're going to pass in new vector 3, and we're going to give it x, y, and 0, and then we're going to specify quaternion dot identity as tile, and then we're just going to say grid x, y equals blank tile. So what this is going to do essentially is this place blanks is going to get called after we place clues, which is going to get called after we've placed all the mines. So we place all the mines, then we go back and we place all the clues, and then after we're done placing all the clues, we're going to place the blanks. And the blanks are just going to basically iterate over all of the x and y's, and they're going to check and say, hey, is there a null here? And if there is, that means that it's not a mine, it's not a clue, so obviously it just needs to be a blank. Easy enough, right? So what is this complaining about? Because there's nothing else in the if statement, it doesn't matter. So we save it and we go back to Unity. Where are you? We press play, and boy, that doesn't seem right. That does not seem right at all. So let's comment that out and see what's going on here. Okay, yeah, that's not right, because look, there's not 6 mines around this. So what's happening here? We place the mines, then we iterate over the clues, x and y. If grid xy equals null, number of mines, and the only thing we really changed is we're adding the clue tile to the x and y position of that grid. Right? So it doesn't like that. Aha. You understand what's happening here? Alright, check this out. So when we add clue tile to grid XY, it's adding that tile. Okay? So at any point when this says, hey, is it null? It could be checking a clue tile. It doesn't know whether the tile it's checking is null or whether it's a clue or a mine because we haven't specified. So here's where we go in and we say, hey, so we care if it's null, right? But we also care if it's a mine. It can only be a mine. So if it's null and the grid xy dot tile kind equals tile kind dot mine. So if grid xy equals null, right, the current position that we're checking is if it's null, and it's a mine, that's the only time we actually care about this part. So now we should be able to put this back in, right? And the blank tile. Save that. And let's go ahead and press play. Wow, did not like that. What do we have going on here? Object reference not set to an instance of an object. Oh, obviously. So that's where I did this wrong. Okay, so we can't, obviously, if it's null. If it is null, right? What we really care about is that the surrounding isn't a mine, right? So if this isn't null, right? If north is not null, then we increment the number of mines. But only if it is a mine should we do that. So what we need, oh crap, is we need to add and grid x y plus 1 equals dot tile kind equals tile kind dot mine. So as long as it doesn't equal null, so there's something there, and it is a mine, because otherwise it could find a clue tile and still give us the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this and paste it in with every single one of these checks, making sure that the tile that we're actually checking that's not null is also a mine. Because if it's not a mine, we don't care about it. Okay? So that should fix our problem. So now when we go back to Unity, stop this, play it again. Not really. Wow. I am on fire today. What is this telling me? Object reference not set to an instance of an object. Game, place clues at line 92. Line 92. Ah. That's what happens when you copy and paste. So we pasted y plus 1, y plus 1, y plus 1. What we have to do is we have to check the actual grid at the same place that we're actually checking to see whether or not the tile is null or is not null. So this would be x plus 1, y. And you know, sometimes, some days you have like, you know exactly what you're doing, and other days you're like, why am I sucking so badly? And these are just the days of programming. This is what happens is, you know, some days you're like, wow, this stuff is like second nature to me. And then other days you're like, why is nothing working? So x plus 1, y plus 1, x minus 1, y plus 1, x plus 1, y minus 1. And finally, we've got, this tutorial is going way too long. X minus 1, y minus 1. Whoa. Alright. I just hope you guys appreciate all the troubleshooting that's happening right now. So now we should be good. Bam. That looks great. Just to verify though, 2 mines around the 2, right? 1, 2. 1 mine around the 1. Yep. 1 mine around this one. 1 mine around that one. 1 mine around that one. 2 mines around that 2. 1 mine around that one, and that one. 1 mine around this one, and this one. 3 mines around that 3. 3 mines around this 3. 1 mine around that 1. 2 mines around that 2. 2 mines around that 2. 3 mines around that 3. 1 mine around that 1. 1 mine around that 1. 1 mine around that 1. 2 mines around this 2. 2 mines around that 2. 2 mines around that 2. 3 around that 3. 2 around that 2. 1 around that 1. 1 around that 1. 1 around that 1. 1 around this one, and I think that's it. I think I got them all. So yeah, this looks good. So we stop it and we play it. Alright, so the idea then for the next tutorial is going to be that when we click on a blank tile, so actually the first thing we're going to do with our next tutorial is we're going to create, we're going to change the sprite of these, okay? So the sprite of these are all going to be the uncovered tile. And basically, you're not going to see whether something is a blank tile, a 1 tile, or sorry, a clue tile or a mine tile. They're all just going to look the same. So the idea is you click one of them, and if it's a blank tile, like let's say we click this one, it uncovers, and it checks all around it and says, hey, if all these tiles around me are blank, I'm going to uncover these as well. And if 1 tile around me is a clue tile, then I'll uncover that, but that'll also be my stopping point. I won't check any other tiles around that one. Okay, so literally what we should see is these uncovered, that, this, this, this. So basically, if we click this, it'll uncover all of this section for us so that we can have some clue as to what is around, so that we can start to place our flags to mark where our mines are, which is also going to be something that's going to be at a later tutorial. So what do we say, 10 episodes for this? I'm thinking we're going to get there, maybe even sooner than 10 episodes. So that's it, guys. That's the end of the tutorial. I'd like to thank all of my Patreon supporters for supporting me. And as always, if you like the video, give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions, comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe and press the bell for notifications. And don't forget to spread the word, spread the love. The Weekly Coder. All right, I'll see you guys next week. Thanks. Bye.